A nurse denied care to an elderly man because his insurance was not covering it. But when the Minister of Health walked through the doors with his security team, the entire hospital froze. This isn't just a story about missed paperwork. It's about dignity, forgotten service, and a town that refused to stay silent. Before we begin, let us know where you're watching from and subscribe if you believe no hero should ever be left behind. The corridors of St. Mary's Hospital were always busy. Doctors and nurses moved quickly, tending to patients and handling emergencies. It was an old hospital in a small town where everyone knew each other. The building had seen many years and many people. It was a place where life and hope intertwined with illness and struggle. John Thompson walked through these corridors on a gray morning. He was an 82-year-old man with a strong past. He had served in wars and had lived a life full of challenges. John was respected in his town. People admired his courage and integrity. Despite his age, he lived alone in a small house at the edge of town. He managed his life quietly and with dignity. Today, John was at the hospital for a routine checkup. Lately, he had been feeling unwell. He thought it was just the flu or maybe something minor. He wore a simple coat and had his old cap on, the one he always wore out of habit. As he walked, he noticed the familiar faces of staff and a few patients he had seen before during his visits. The hospital was full of activity. Phones rang, announcements echoed through the halls, and people moved with purpose. John waited patiently as he always did. He was a man who understood the value of patience and time. He sat in the waiting area, watching the world move around him. When his turn came, a nurse called his name. Her voice was firm but distracted. She was young, perhaps new to the job, and seemed overwhelmed by the endless tasks. John stood up slowly and followed her to a small examination room. He noticed her hurried movements and the pile of files on her desk. The nurse began asking questions, checking his records on the computer. John explained his symptoms, trying to be as clear as possible. But soon, the nurse frowned. She looked at him, then back at the screen. There seemed to be a problem. She told John his insurance details were not up to date. Without the correct paperwork, he could not receive treatment. Her voice was firm but not unkind. She was simply following the rules, the protocols set by the system. John tried to explain. He spoke of his past visits, how he had always been treated here. But the nurse shook her head. Without the right documents, she insisted there was nothing she could do. John felt a wave of frustration. He had never been one to ask for much. He had served his country, paid his dues, and lived an honest life. Yet here he was, being denied care because of a mistake in paperwork. The nurse apologized but remained firm. She had her orders and the system was not flexible. John left the room, feeling a mix of emotions. There was anger, yes, but more than that, there was a deep sense of betrayal. This was the system he had trusted, the one he believed in. He had fought for this country and now it seemed to turn its back on him when he needed it the most. As he walked out of the hospital, he felt the weight of his years pressing down. His steps were slow and his breath came with difficulty. The air outside was cool, but it did little to ease the heat of his frustration. He paused for a moment, looking back at the hospital. It stood there, unchanged and indifferent. John's mind was a whirl of thoughts. He thought of the past, of the battles he had fought both on the field and in life. He remembered friends who had not made it back and those who had returned but were never the same. He had survived all that, yet here he was, struggling for a simple act of care. The walk home was long. Each step seemed heavier than the last. He passed through the familiar streets of Ridgewood. People greeted him as they always did, with nods and smiles. But today, John did not have the strength to return their warmth. His thoughts were elsewhere, on the events of the morning. As he reached his house, he paused at the door. It was a small, sturdy home, much like John himself. It had seen many years and had weathered many storms. Inside, the rooms were quiet, filled with memories of a life lived with purpose. John sat in his favorite chair, looking out of the window. The town moved at its usual pace, unaware of his struggles. He felt tired, more tired than he had felt in a long time. There was a chill in the air, and he pulled his coat tighter around him. He thought about calling someone, perhaps a friend or a neighbor. But pride held him back. He had always been self-reliant, never one to burden others with his problems. Yet, deep down, he knew he needed help. His health was not something he could ignore, not anymore. As the day turned to evening, John sat in silence. The light outside faded and the room grew dim. He thought of the nurse and the hospital. He did not blame her. She was just doing her job. But the system, the bureaucracy, that was something else. It was something that needed to change. John's thoughts drifted to his past, to the promises made and kept. He had always believed in doing what was right, in standing up for others. But now he found himself alone, facing a system that seemed to forget the very people it was meant to serve. The night was long, filled with restless thoughts and memories. John knew he could not continue like this. He needed to find a way to get the care he required. But how? That was the question that lingered as he finally drifted into an uneasy sleep. In the morning, the world seemed unchanged. The sun rose, casting light on the town of Ridgewood. But for John, everything felt different. He knew he had to take action to find a solution to this problem. He could not let pride stand in the way of his health. The day started slowly. John moved through his morning routine with care. Each task required effort, each step was deliberate. But there was determination in his movements, a resolve to face the challenges ahead. As he prepared to leave the house, he knew he was not alone. The town of Ridgewood, with its familiar faces and kind hearts, was a community that cared. And perhaps, just perhaps, they would stand with him in this fight for what was right. Word of John Thompson's experience at St. Mary's Hospital spread quickly through Ridgewood. The small town, known for its close-knit community, buzzed with talk. People discussed the situation in homes, shops, and the local diner. John was more than just a resident. He was a respected figure whose past acts of courage and kindness had left a mark. In the town square, people gathered, exchanging stories about John. Many remembered his service during the war and his quiet strength in the years that followed. It was hard for them to believe that someone who had given so much could be treated with such indifference. At the Veterans Club, the news hit hard. The members, many of whom had served alongside John or knew of his bravery, were outraged. They talked about the bureaucracy that had failed him and the need to rally around their friend. There was a sense of urgency, a desire to correct the wrongs and ensure John received the care he deserved. Emma, a young nurse at St. Mary's, had overheard the incident. She felt troubled by what had happened. Emma was new to the town, but she had already heard of John and his contributions. His story touched her, and she felt compelled to act. Emma believed in compassionate care and knew this was not how a veteran should be treated. During her break, Emma joined the discussions at the local diner. She listened to the townsfolk and shared what she knew. Her presence and willingness to speak out gave others the courage to voice their concerns. Emma talked about the challenges within the hospital, the limits of the system, and the need for change. Joe, an old friend of John's and a fellow veteran, was particularly moved. He had known John for many years and owed him his life. Joe decided to take action. He believed in the power of community and knew they had to do something. He began reaching out to local media and political contacts, hoping to draw attention to John's plight. The small town of Ridgewood was waking up to the power of collective action. People came together, united by the desire to help John. They shared stories of his bravery and kindness, reinforcing his importance to the town. It was a moment of solidarity, a testament to the strength of community bonds. As the story gained momentum, the hospital administration found itself under pressure. The community's outrage was impossible to ignore. Calls and letters poured in, demanding answers and accountability. The hospital, caught in the spotlight, had to respond. Despite the mounting pressure, bureaucratic hurdles remained. The hospital's procedures were complex and change was not easy. There was resistance from those who valued protocol over people. But Emma and Joe's efforts continued, highlighting the challenges of navigating a system that often lacked empathy. The local newspaper picked up the story. It ran a piece about John, detailing his service, his life in Ridgewood, and the events at the hospital. The article was powerful, capturing the attention of many. It painted a picture of a man who had given everything and now needed the support of his community. The article's impact was immediate. More people came forward, offering help and sharing similar experiences. It became clear that John's story was not unique. Many had faced similar challenges, caught in the web of bureaucracy and indifference. The narrative shifted from one man's struggle to a broader conversation about the need for systemic change. The hospital administration was now in a difficult position. The pressure from the community and the media was intense. They knew they had to act, but the path forward was unclear. There were meetings and discussions, but progress was slow. Emma and Joe continued their advocacy, refusing to give up. They organized meetings, bringing together people who cared about the issue. They spoke with passion, emphasizing the need for empathy and understanding in healthcare. Their efforts were not without obstacles, but they were determined to make a difference. As the days passed, the story reached beyond Ridgewood. It caught the attention of people in neighboring towns and even reached the state capital. The power of the media and community action was evident. What started as a local issue was now a topic of wider discussion. For John, the support was overwhelming. He had not expected such a response. His quiet life had suddenly become the focus of attention. While he appreciated the help, he found the spotlight uncomfortable. John was a man of few words, and this level of attention was new to him. But he understood the importance of what was happening. This was not just about him, it was about ensuring that others did not face the same challenges. He saw the community coming together, united by a common cause, and it gave him hope. Emma and Joe's efforts paid off when a journalist from a larger newspaper took an interest. The story was about to reach an even wider audience. The journalist promised to bring attention to the case, highlighting the power of community and the need for change. The narrative was clear: a small town had come together to stand up for one of their own, challenging a system that often valued rules over people. It was a story of resilience and advocacy, of a community using its voice to demand justice. As the story gained traction, there was a sense of anticipation. The community waited, hopeful that change was on the horizon. They had shown that when people stand together, they can make a difference. John, though still struggling with his health, felt a renewed sense of purpose. He saw the impact of his story, how it had sparked conversations and brought people together. It was a reminder that even in the face of adversity, there is power in unity. The small town of Ridgewood had become a symbol of resilience and advocacy, a place where people stood up for what was right. And in the heart of it all was John, a quiet hero who had inspired change simply by being himself. The news of John's story reached the capital. The Minister of Health, a man known for his hands-on approach, learned about the situation. He was a leader who cared deeply about veterans and understood the challenges they faced. The story of John Thompson resonated with him, reminding him of past failures and the need for reform. The minister decided he needed to act. He could not ignore the plight of a veteran who had given so much. He announced his intention to visit St. Mary's Hospital personally. This news sent ripples through the hospital administration. They were caught off guard by the attention from such a high level. The announcement prompted a flurry of activity as they scrambled to address the situation. The hospital staff, especially those involved in John's case, felt the pressure mounting. The nurse who had denied John was particularly troubled. She had not intended to cause harm. She was simply following the rules she thought were right. But now she faced scrutiny for her actions and the system she represented. The minister's visit was a significant event. It was rare for someone of his stature to intervene directly in such matters. But he was determined to ensure that John received the care he needed. The minister believed that actions spoke louder than words, and he intended to make a difference. On the day of the visit, the hospital was abuzz with activity. Staff prepared for the arrival, ensuring everything was in order. There was a palpable tension in the air, a mix of fear and hope. The presence of the minister was both a challenge and an opportunity for change. When the minister arrived, he was met by hospital officials eager to show their willingness to resolve the issue. He was a man of few words but with a commanding presence. He listened carefully to their explanations and then asked to meet John. John, initially hesitant about the attention, agreed to meet the minister. He understood the importance of this visit, not just for himself but for others like him. The meeting took place in a quiet room away from the hustle of the hospital. The minister spoke with John, expressing his regret for what had happened. He assured John that he was there to help and that changes would be made. The conversation was brief but meaningful. John appreciated the minister's sincerity and his commitment to making things right. Under the minister's oversight, John finally received the treatment he needed. The hospital staff worked diligently, ensuring that all his medical needs were addressed. The care he received was thorough and respectful, a stark contrast to his previous experience. The minister's visit was not just about John. It was a wake-up call for the hospital. The staff, especially the nurse involved, realized the importance of empathy and understanding in their work. They saw firsthand the impact of their actions and the need for accountability. The minister also took the time to address the hospital staff. He spoke about the importance of treating veterans with the care and respect they deserved. He emphasized that while procedures were important, they should never come at the expense of compassion. The visit marked a turning point. The hospital administration recognized the need for change. They began reviewing their policies and procedures, looking for ways to improve care for veterans and others in need. The aim was to create a system that balanced rules with empathy. For John, the experience was both overwhelming and humbling. He was grateful for the support he received but felt uncomfortable with the attention. He had never sought the spotlight, he simply wanted the care he was entitled to. But he understood that his story had become bigger than him, a catalyst for change. The community of Ridgewood watched the events unfold with a sense of pride. They had stood up for one of their own, and their efforts had not been in vain. The minister's intervention was a validation of their actions, a testament to the power of collective advocacy. Emma and Joe, who had been instrumental in bringing attention to John's case, felt a sense of accomplishment. Their efforts had made a difference, proving that even small voices could lead to significant change. They were proud of what they had achieved and motivated to continue their work. The minister's visit also sparked broader discussions about healthcare for veterans. It highlighted the gaps in the system and the need for reform. The story of John Thompson became a symbol of the need for empathy and accountability in healthcare. As the minister prepared to leave, he thanked the community for their efforts. He promised to take their concerns back to the Capitol, using John's story to push for broader reforms. His commitment was genuine, and it gave hope to those who had felt overlooked. The days following the visit were filled with reflection. John, though still frail, felt a renewed sense of hope. He had seen the power of community and the impact of advocacy. It was a reminder that change was possible even in the face of seemingly insurmountable challenges. The hospital began implementing changes, starting with training programs for the staff. There was a renewed focus on empathy and understanding, ensuring that no one else would face what John had. It was a small step, but an important one. For the community of Ridgewood, the events had strengthened their bonds. They had come together not just for John but for all those who needed help. Their actions had made a difference, showing the power of standing up for what was right. As life slowly returned to normal, John found himself reflecting on the journey. He realized that his legacy was not just about his past service but also about the change he had helped inspire. It was a comforting thought, knowing he had made a difference in a way he never expected. The story of John Thompson and the community of Ridgewood was a reminder of the power of empathy, the importance of advocacy, and the impact of collective action. It showed that even in a world filled with challenges, there was always hope for change. In the weeks following the minister's visit, Ridgewood became a symbol of community resilience and change. The small town had shown what was possible when people came together for a common cause. John's story had sparked not only local but also broader awareness about the challenges faced by veterans. At St. Mary's Hospital, changes were underway. The administration, motivated by the minister's visit and the community's response, implemented new policies. These policies aimed to streamline the process for veterans seeking medical help. The goal was to ensure that no one else would face the hurdles that John had encountered. Training programs for hospital staff became a priority. The focus was on empathy and understanding. Nurses and doctors were encouraged to see beyond paperwork and protocol, to view patients as people with stories and needs. This shift in perspective was crucial in transforming the hospital's approach to care. Emma, the young nurse who had played a key role in advocating for John, took these changes to heart. She became involved in the training sessions, sharing her experiences and insights. Emma's dedication inspired her colleagues, fostering a culture of compassion within the hospital. Joe, John's old friend and fellow veteran, continued his advocacy work. He collaborated with local organizations to raise awareness about veterans' issues. Joe organized community meetings, inviting speakers and experts to discuss the challenges and solutions. His efforts helped maintain the momentum for change, ensuring that the conversation did not end with John's story. For John, life slowly returned to routine. His health improved with the proper care, and he resumed his quiet life on the edge of town. But his experiences had changed him. He felt a new sense of purpose, a desire to share his story and inspire others to stand up for their rights. John began attending community gatherings, sharing his experiences with those willing to listen. He spoke about the importance of vigilance and collective action in safeguarding justice. His words carried weight, drawing from a lifetime of service and integrity. People listened, inspired by his resilience and wisdom. The town of Ridgewood embraced John as a local hero. They saw him not just as a veteran but as a symbol of hope and change. His story became a reminder of the power of community and the difference one person could make. John's quiet strength and determination resonated with many, encouraging them to take action in their own lives. The changes at St. Mary's Hospital were just the beginning. The minister's visit had sparked discussions at higher levels, prompting calls for broader healthcare reforms. There was a growing recognition of the need to address systemic issues to ensure that all individuals received the care and respect they deserved. As these discussions continued, John received a letter from the minister. It was a personal note, thanking him for his service and acknowledging his role in sparking necessary change. The letter was a testament to John's impact, a recognition of his contribution to a better world. John read the letter on his porch, the familiar surroundings of his home grounding him. He felt a mix of emotions, gratitude, pride, and a sense of fulfillment. The letter was a reminder that his legacy extended beyond his military service. It was now about helping create a better world for those who followed. The hospital's new policies began to show results. Veterans and other marginalized individuals reported more positive experiences. There was a noticeable shift in the way care was delivered, a testament to the power of empathy and understanding. The changes were small but meaningful, paving the way for a more inclusive system. Emma continued her work at the hospital, now a respected voice for change. She had grown from the experience, learning the importance of advocacy and compassion in her profession. Emma's journey was a testament to the impact one person could have, inspiring others to follow her example. The nurse who had initially denied John also learned from the experience. She had faced scrutiny and pressure, but she emerged more compassionate and understanding. The incident had been a turning point in her career, reminding her of the human element in healthcare. She worked hard to make amends, becoming a more empathetic caregiver. For the residents of Ridgewood, John's story remained a powerful reminder of the importance of community. They had witnessed the impact of collective action, the difference it could make in the lives of those who needed help. It was a lesson they carried forward, strengthening their bonds and commitment to each other. As time passed, the town continued to thrive. The changes sparked by John's story became part of Ridgewood's identity, a testament to their resilience and advocacy. The community had shown that even in the face of adversity, there was always hope for change. John, though still frail, found peace in knowing he had made a difference. He continued to share his story, inspiring others to stand up for what was right. His legacy was one of courage, integrity, and hope, a reminder that even the smallest voices could lead to significant change. On quiet evenings, John sat on his porch, watching the world go by. The town moved at its usual pace, but for him, everything felt different. He had seen the power of community, the impact of advocacy, and the importance of empathy. It was a comforting thought, knowing that his story had helped create a better world. The journey of John Thompson and Ridgewood was a testament to the power of collective action and the importance of standing up for what is right. It showed that even in a world filled with challenges, there was always hope for change. And in the heart of it all was John, a quiet hero whose legacy would live on. If you loved this story, like the video.